Hello, I'm Carol Peters with West Meadowbrook Neighborhood Association, and this is another episode of Eastside Stories. I'd like to welcome Wanda Conlin, my longtime neighbor, community activist, and a general good person who works on behalf of West Meadowbrook. We are talking with her today in two segments because her history with this neighborhood spans 60 years. She's been my neighbor for 40, and she's lived here for 60 years. I'd like to start and focus on two options or two things that she's been very active in, although she's had many roles in helping our community. We want to start with the establishment of Broadcast Hill as part of Tandy Hills Nature Preserve. And next, I'd like to turn to Wanda and let her introduce herself. That's our custom here with Eastside Stories. So Wanda, welcome. And tell us a little bit about your history with the community.
Well, first of all, I'm in West Meadowbrook on Scenery Hill by choice. I was given a couple of years by my husband to find the place where we wanted to settle. And after looking around, I chose West Meadowbrook, Scenery Hill, as the place that I wanted to raise my children and spend my life. And we've lived in two houses on Martell Street. And I chose West Meadowbrook, Scenery Hill, because of the green space and the trees. And Carol is asking me who I am. Well, do we ever know who we are? Not really. We spend a lifetime trying to figure that out. And I prefer, instead of neighborhood activist, I like the word advocate, because that's what I've been ever since I've lived here, an advocate for this neighborhood. What's good for it, it's my home, and basically I'm a homemaker. So I just want it to be the best it can be.
And you have been our protector and our advocate. There are two segments, as I mentioned, one on Broadcast Hill and one on East Lancaster. So we're going to focus on Broadcast Hill. Why did you feel it was so important to protect this land and kind of go over the demographics, the boundaries of the plot that was taken into Tandy Hills Nature Preserve?
Well, first of all, it is a part of our history, and I love that Texas history where the buffalo roamed and the Native Americans were here. This is a part of that tall grass prairie land that sustained that lifestyle for so many years. And I felt like it was absolutely essential that it be saved. And I watched it over a period of time, over these 60 years since I moved up here. I watched it go from one ownership to another to another. It was owned for, ever since I could remember, ever since I moved up here. It was owned first by Amon Carter, who built his television station here, and a radio station that we had at one time. And that tall 1,500-foot tower that is a beacon for people who are coming from the east to the west and going from west to east. So that broadcast station, that radio station, could go from border to border, from ocean to ocean, and it did. But I just felt like that this was a portion of our history that had to be saved. Ecologically, environmentally, it's a treasure. And so as we watched it go from the Amon Carter people, when the Fed said you cannot own a newspaper, a radio station, and a television station all at the same time. One entity cannot own those three. So it had to be broken up. And the Carter people chose to keep the newspaper, and they sold the television station and the radio station. And from then on, we were fighting for the wildflowers, to keep it natural and to keep it from being developed. It's just been a constant battle. But the neighbors wanted to keep it that way, and I wanted to keep it that way, so we were willing to go that battle. We were willing to go the route. I cannot tell you how many times I've stood in front of the mowers, keeping them from mowing down acres of wildflowers in full bloom. Not good. Each time we had a new ownership, we had to re-educate them about the flowers. But when Chesapeake bought that from Sagamore Hill Baptist Church, which should have never owned it in the first place, they were terrible stewards of the land, but when Chesapeake owned it, we had, as 5 neighborhoods, had retained protection of the land because we all stuck together and sold our mineral rights to XTO rather than Chesapeake. Therefore, Chesapeake owned a piece of ground that they couldn't drill on, not because of just access, but because all around them, the XTO had owned our mineral rights, so they were kind of ringed in. So we didn't wind up with a drill site or a pipeline. That was in our contract with XTO, so that gave the land some protection, thank God. And then when I started asking the city council, please buy that land. After we got the police station, it's not a station, when we got the police facility there, I said, you need to buy that land because it is contiguous with your ownership of the television station land, the police station land. And they were looking at it even before a developer came to me and said, I was told that I have to talk to you because he said, I'm looking at buying that piece of ground and I want you to be a part of my vision for it. And I told him our vision for it is to be left alone. Leave it alone. We want it natural. And that sent up a warning flag to me. And I composed an email, and I sent it to Carol and to everybody that I knew loved that piece of ground. And I said, look, that land is for sale. Total does not want it, and we need to do something. And so it was like the stars aligned. Carol sent an email to our city council person the same day they were talking about saving green space in the city of Fort Worth.
And that was the turning point. That's what we were,
that was
my question was, what was the turning point? And the real turning point was the city realizing that green space was disappearing at a rapid pace and to start thinking about how to preserve that space. So that was quite a
it was wonderful
journey to get to that wonderful end. But we now have Broadcast Hill, which is adjacent, as Wanda said, to a number of city facilities and a radio station antenna. Now part of the Tandy Hills Nature Preserve, which is just a beautiful space in our community. And you gave some examples of some close calls with developers and previous owners. And how did you win? How did we win?
How did we win? Because we all came together. I believe in coalitions. Everybody who ever loved that piece of ground stepped up to the plate.
So it was a unifier.
It was a unifier.
Talk about the environment and land. So that's a good lesson for all of us to find a unifier.
Absolutely.
Where do you see the city going with land protection and park development?
I think they're headed in the right direction. We got the first because we unified and we said, this is what we want. We got the first, and we had a supporter in our city council representative, but I think we probably are the only ones who put up any money. And I think that probably was a signal to them that we were serious about what we wanted to do. And there are some other areas that are in consideration now that they're thinking about preserving.
On the east side of Fort Worth?
Yes.
Wonderful. Do you know what they are?
Out by Lake Arlington, for one.
Yeah, I've heard about that one. So.
And then they're really getting serious about our trees, our post oaks.
Yes.
Preserve.
I've heard that.
Yeah, along the river. Mm-hmm. They're getting
Okay.
serious about that.
Why? I was curious. Why did you personally take this issue on? How would you advise other people like you to tackle such issues? And what are the obstacles that you had to overcome? What's the strategy that works?
The strategy that I have always believed in is when there is an issue that comes up for our neighborhood, first I have to think it out. I'm not a real quick thinker. I've considered things for a while, but I've always tried to figure out who it is that can actually make a difference in the city government or the staff. Who are the people that can actually make a difference, can make a decision and help us? And I go to that person first, and I try to make friends.
Mm-hmm. Allies.
I try to explain, this is what we want and this is the reason why we want it. And usually it works. We've lost some battles. We lost a big one when we got all of the cluster of homeless between us and downtown. I lost that battle. I couldn't win it. There was too much against it. But I didn't make enemies. I don't believe in making enemies. I want them to be my friend. And they usually
So
are.
in the end, the city must work with you.
Yes.
Beside you,
Oh yes.
and that's as much your responsibility as it is
Yes.
the city's.
Actually, I think it is our responsibility to go to the person who can actually make a decision first. It'll come down from there.
Excellent advice. Well, thank you very much, Wanda, for this first segment of Eastside Stories, talking about Broadcast Hill and how it became part of Tandy Hills Nature Preserve. Our next segment, again, will be on Reby Carey Library in East Lancaster Avenue. Thank you.